Welcome to part 6.
We've basically completed this application. The last thing we want to do is work on the register functionality so that you can go ahead and easily add members to your database. So I've opened up my register view. Let me just close a couple files. Okay, so we have a blank page here. Basically, we just need to duplicate some of the functionality from login.php. So I'm going to open up the login view and copy and paste that into register. And let's make a couple changes. We want to change this to register member. Like so. We can basically keep all this. We do want to duplicate this section because we want to ask the person who's inputting this data to double check their password. So we're going to ask them to submit their password again. And we're going to change input to input pass2 and echo the error message to error pass2. And that should be basically it. One thing down at the bottom here, let's include a paragraph tag, and let's include a link back to the members page. And then also a link to log out. Okay, and let me briefly go over this one more time just to make sure I've caught everything. Looks pretty good. One minor thing I noticed, this ending slash isn't necessary because we're working with HTML4, so I can go ahead and remove that. I'm going to quickly open up the login file and remove it here as well. Okay, so it looks like that's pretty much set. Let's go to register.php, and a lot of the code that we'll be working with is basically just working with from login.php. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this. Okay, and let's change a couple things. Okay, like so. So we want to include the session. We want to include config file and database file. Let's also make sure that the user is logged in. So I'm going to go back to my members page and just copy and paste this block here. There we go. So we started the session. This just makes sure that the user is actually logged in before they can continue working with this page. So a couple form defaults, this looks good. Let's also add an additional error variable here, so pass2, and also an input pass2. And just to explain, because I don't think I mentioned this before, the reason why I've separated these into error and input is I like grouping variables that relate to each other. So in this case, I've made them an associative array where they all share errors or inputs. It just makes things a little bit simpler when I'm thinking through my code. Okay, so we have this check, which we want to make sure we keep. And we want to actually check that all the fields are filled in. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this. So we're going to check if password 2 is set. So let me go back and make sure this is all fine. Here, this needs to be named password 2. And this is for password 2. Okay, so that's fine. And let's copy and paste this. If password 2 is empty, error password 2 is required. Okay, that looks good. And let's skip this section here for the moment. And we want to make sure we're including the right file. So this is register.php. Okay. So let's go ahead and test this for the moment. Okay, so let's log in. So we've logged in, register member. Okay, we get to a register member page. This looks fine. Only thing that we have working is we're checking if the user's inputted all the right information. So let's just check that. Almost good. Looks like it's redirecting us back to the wrong view. So this actually needs to be register. There we go. And I'm just going to quickly go back and just double check. Okay, there we go. That's working as it should. Okay, so let's go here. We're going to want to duplicate this. And this is pass2, and we want to get the post data from the password 2 input. So that's good. I guess one other thing we do need to do up here, let's do an else if. And we want to make sure that the passwords match each other. So if okay, so if these passwords don't match, we want to go ahead, display an error message, and redirect the user back to the form. So basically, we can just copy and paste this stuff here. Just change a couple things. Can just leave this alone. Alert. Like so. And let's make sure we're getting all the data correctly. That's fine. And that's fine. Okay, so I've saved it. Now let's get back down here. So we've pulled the data that we need from the form. Now let's go ahead and insert the data into the database. So we are going to go ahead and use a prepare statement, but we do need to change it. So I'm going to change it to insert. I'm going to insert into the members table, and we're going to insert username and password, and we're going to give it the values of question mark, question mark. And then right below, we're going to bind their parameters. This is a string and that's a string, so that stays the same. And input user and input pass stays the same. So this looks pretty good. And we execute, and then let's just close the query now that we're done with it. And it looks like we're good. We can delete this. And I guess after we're done with this, now we can just go ahead, let's clear the data variables. So input equals nothing, and then I'm just going to quickly copy and paste this. So this is pass 2, and then we redirect them back to the register page. And I guess the last thing we want to do is we want to make sure that the user sees the success message. So error. Okay, so let's go ahead and preview this. I'm going to go ahead and log out. Let's log back in. So admin. Okay, so we're logged in now. Let's go ahead and register a member. I'm going to register a temp member with a password of temp as well. Submit. And it looks like I have a small error, so let me go back and check that. Looks like I just missed a U here. That should be values. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. Let's go to the login page and log in as admin. It looks like I've successfully logged in. Let me go to register a member. I'm just going to call it temp with a password of temp. So submit. It looks like the member was added successfully. So let's go to Firefox and I'm going to refresh this page. Looks like, yep, temp was added successfully and the password was added successfully. So I'm going to log out. Let's just make sure we can log in as this user. So temp. It looks like that worked just fine. So now there's obviously a lot more you could do with this. There are just a couple things off the top of my head. You could include a link here that would allow users to reset their password. Obviously, you can't send them the password directly because you don't store the password in the database. And personally, I think that's a good thing because you don't want, if someone somehow got access to your database, you don't want them having plain text versions of the passwords. But that's one option. You could also, probably one important thing to do would be to change the register PHP page to make sure that a username is not already in the database before you add it. At the moment, for example, I'm going to try to add another temp user. Let's see what happens. So member added successfully. There we go. So at the moment there are 2 temp users and that could be potentially an issue. So obviously you'd want to check for that. And you know, pretty much the sky's the limit on this one. You could just continue adding functionality slowly. Well, that wraps up this tutorial. Thanks for watching. Please feel free to send me any comments or questions either at my email, ben@killersites.com, or on the Killer Sites web forums at killersites.com/community, where I go by the username Falcon Creative. Thank you much.